Listen, I did film and television studies at university for 3 years. I spent hours reading countless books and articles on subjects spanning from film all the way to television. Not a single one mentioned Hugh Grant once.
I achieved the hardest qualification across any university or college ever, a 2-1 in history. Let me tell you, the only thing that I learned was that we, as a society, have a history of denying and neglecting Hugh Grant's artistic and cultural relevance, not just in this country, but in the entire world.
I met Oscar at a Hugh Grant-themed event I put on at the Students' Union.
It felt as though Diggory and I were the only ones there, and we agreed that there was a Hugh Grant-shaped hole in academia.
We decided to put it right ourselves. We want to show people that he's an icon in acting.
We want to show people he's more than just a bumbling posh guy.
I'm Diggory Waite.
And I'm Oscar Beardmore Gray. And this is...
Taking Hugh for Granted.
Hello and welcome to Taking Hugh for Granted, the podcast in which two Hugh Grant enthusiasts watch every single film starring Hugh Grant in the attempt to answer the simple question, is this film taking Hugh for granted? Is this film good on its own, or does it rely on the bumbling Brit for its acclaim? I'm Diggory Waite and I'm joined, as always, by my colleague and fellow Hugh Grant obsessive, Oscar Beardmore Gray. Oscar, how the hell are you doing, mate?
I'm doing very well, Diggory. How the hell are you?
I'm all right, thanks. I always try and make the "how the hell are you doing, mate" a bit different every time, because I think people sometimes say, "Oh, is the beginning of it pre-recorded?" Because you say the same thing every time. I'm sort of trying to show them, no, it isn't.
It's different every time.
Yeah, like that time, I actually did it quite a lot. You might have even heard my chair creaking in the background. Because I was quite animated. It's a shame people can't see, but I was very excited for that one. But yes, are you doing well? How are you doing? How's everything at your end?
Yeah, mate, I'm very, very well. Very, very well indeed. I heard that,
Excellent.
We were talking just before we came on air, Diggs, that you're thinking in your lockdown blues of potentially getting ripped. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's about time that I get ripped, actually. I think I'm going to buy something called a press-up board where you have two handles. It's like a board. You have two handles and you put the handles in different areas and it exercises different parts of you. So your arms, your triceps, your biceps, your back muscles, your track muscles, your flat muscles, all the muscles. It's very technical stuff. And I'll get fucking sliced. And I think it's about time that happened. I watch these videos being like, how do I get sliced? And the problem is they're like, yeah, you can exercise. And I see these beefcakes doing their push-ups and stuff and pull-ups and things. And I think, okay. And then they're like, and then you have to eat 8,000 calories of chicken. And I'm like,
it's difficult.
I don't like eating that much.
It's difficult for someone whose culinary expertise is baked beans and cheese. When we were at university, Diggory had 2 meals he could cook: beans on toast and pasta
Correct.
with tomato sauce. I don't know if his repertoire has it increased since then.
It's expanded
to Doritos.
Perhaps Doritos and dip. That's exactly right. You're missing out a key ingredient as well, which I used to. I'd make my pasta. I'd put the tomato sauce. I'd put some cheese on, and then I'd douse it in hot sauce. And for a while at university, every meal I had was just a vehicle for the hot sauce that I would be eating at that point. And I remember it got to the point where my stomach was so destroyed that I was just. One day I was just sick. And I rang up 111, which in this country is like the non-emergency helpline, to be like, I've just been sick in my bin. What's going on? And they were like, Are you eating much spicy food at the moment? And I was like, yeah, just a bit. And then they were like, are you drinking a lot? Like, yeah, exactly. And she was like, are you drinking a lot? And I was like, I'm at university. I think I'm drinking a lot. And she was like, okay, what did you have last night? And I was like, bottle of wine. She's like, and the night before that? I was like, bottle of wine. And she was like, right, you need to stop with the spicy food and the wine.
Oh dear, Diggs. Anyway, maybe we should get into the actual meat, what we're here to talk about, which is The Man from U.N.C.L.E. 2015. Let's get into it.
Let's get it.
The Man from U.N.C.L.E., directed by Guy Ritchie and released in 2015. In the 1960s, with the Cold War in play, CIA agent Napoleon Solo, played by Henry Cavill, successfully helps Gaby Teller, played by Alicia Vikander, defect to West Germany, despite the intimidating opposition of KGB agent Illya Kuryakin, played by Armie Hammer. Later, all three unexpectedly find themselves working together in a joint mission to stop a private criminal organization from using Gaby's father's scientific expertise to construct their own nuclear bomb. Through clenched teeth, stylish poise, and some help from top MI6 agent Alexander Waverly, played by Hugh Grant, all three must find a way to cooperate for the sake of world peace, even as they each pursue their own agendas.
Well, fair play and hats off to Synopsis Simon for managing to sort of condense this film into a nice little clippable snippet there, because I have to say the premise is potentially quite confusing and convoluted.
It is very confusing. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the film is plot driven throughout, and you don't quite know what's going on until actually, I don't want to get straight to the ending, but it is all kind of wrapped up by our man Hugh Grant.
Yes, yeah, he plays quite an important role, and obviously, usually at the beginning of these reviews, we talk about him first, but it almost feels wrong to in this one because he comes in, or you find out who he really is so late in the film. But as it is taking Hugh for granted, in classic style, we should talk about Hugh Grant first. So Oscar, the usual sorts of stuff. What did you think about his look? What did you think about his character? What did you think about his vibe? What did you think about Hugh Grant in this film?
Diggs, I loved Hugh Grant in this film. I think, I'm just going to say it off the bat, I think this has gone straight up there into the top 10 at least of my favorite Hugh films. I honestly thought it was really good.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed him in this movie. I mean, we actually find out in the credits, I don't know if you noticed, a bit more about him and his character. He is commander of U.N.C.L.E, which is this joint operation of Russian, American, and British spies. And he used to run MI5 in Hong Kong. He also is fluent in 8 languages: Cantonese, Mandarin, Farsi, Russian, French, German, Swahili, and Hindi. I somehow think that is... I can't imagine Hugh being able to speak all those languages, but fair play to his character. And then the other two things I don't know if you noticed is that he was a former alcohol and opium addict, and he was also second son of the Earl of Brinscote. But actually he relinquished his title, which I thought was quite a nice touch. I feel like that's something that Hugh would do. Just the posh man, but actually, 2 fingers to the posh world that he was born into. So I quite like that. Yeah. So I don't make of that what you will of his character.
Yeah. Oh no, I love all those. I love those little Easter eggs and stuff like that. It felt very fitting. I like the whole like alcohol and opiate thing. I suppose all those languages. I guess when he was in Hong Kong, he needed those for that sort of area. I mean, to be honest, let's have a Waverly prequel. Let's work out what happened with that guy. I'd love to see that. That'd be wicked. Because what I loved about this film as well is, speaking of Easter eggs, is that at the beginning, obviously, I was looking for Hugh the whole time, laser vision. And did you see there was a bit when they went to Rome or Italy, Henry Cavill, I think, goes to check in, and just before he does, someone has just checked in before him, and the person behind the desk is like, "Yeah, there you go, your room 107, Mr. Waverly," and you just see the back of his head turn away, and it's definitely Hugh Grant. It's so cool.
I did notice that. I feel like I have 2020 vision for Hugh Grant now. My head is on a swivel whenever I'm watching a film with him in. And because I think you heard one line at that point, so you heard his voice and you just saw the back of his head, and I was like, "It's Hugh Grant."
Brings you to Rome, Mr. Devaney?
Just here to see the sights.
Oh,
Rudy.
Waverly.
Nice to see you.
Waverly runs the shipping department at British Oil.
I am sorry I'm so late, Rudy. I stupidly seem to have lost my invitation.
Jack Devaney.
Yes, I think we bumped into each other outside.
Begging your pardon. I do apologize.
No, not at all. I notice you're very good with your hands.
Excuse me?
I witnessed your trick with a tablecloth. That's brilliant. Were you once a waiter, or...?
I mean, what did you think of his look, Diggs, in this film? It's quite a Hugh look, a sort of modern Hugh look, I would say.
I really like the glasses. They're sexy as fuck. He kind of
makes the look.
Yeah, it really does. And so I don't know. There's something that I really like about that. Oddly, it's strange as well. I like the 3-pin. Is that a 3-pin suit?
3-piece suit.
three-piece suit, but he's lost the jacket, so you've just got the waistcoat and the glasses. I don't know, that works really well. I really liked his hair as well. I really liked his hair in this as well. It's it's really quite regimented, his hair. It's like there's not a hair out of place, and I really think that's really quite, in this particular role, in this particular look, it's very, very sexy.
Yeah, it gives him a sort of sense, there's a sense of authority about him. A sense of sort of British spyness as well, but kind of a bit of the old school, I feel. And for listeners who haven't seen the film, they're kind of like got a sort of black rim on the top, but not round the whole not around the whole glasses, if that makes sense. And you're right, I don't know exactly what it was. Maybe there was an extra glint in his eye, but it really actually changed his look a bit, I think. And it was it was a really good piece of costume work.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, just a word on all the costumes. I mean, it's a period piece, and they were fabulous. Like, everyone looks great. I mean, I'm always very anti people looking great in these films. Like that, it's the one thing. If I could change cinema forever, I would change this. If you have a film, like there's a film called Gangster Squad, right? And it's got Emma Stone in it, Ryan Gosling, and it's a film about, gangsters, the mafia, set in like the 30s or something. And they all look incredible. They are wearing, they're all in yellow suits, so bright yellow suits. Their cars look flashy, amazing. And you just think, these are mobsters. These are backwards, horrible, And the 30s, I'm sorry, ask anyone who lived through the 30s, and I ask them on a regular basis, what was it like? And they go, it wasn't that bright. We didn't have colour back then. It wasn't invented. We were living in black and white. And I think you look at films like The Godfather and stuff, much more like it, much more grey and more grungy. But this film, I'll let it go because the film's not taking itself too seriously. It's fun, it's flashy, it's suave, it's kind of camp. Like, that's kind of the fun of it. So I will let it off, and yeah, it really works, and it really works for Hugh. He looks great.
Well, you're listening to Hugh Grant taking Hugh for granted on the radio. Hugh Grant taking Hugh for granted. Oh, the podcast show.
So, Diggs, maybe we should talk a little bit more about the film as a whole now. I found a really good review in The Guardian, actually, from the time, which I wanted to read out to maybe just give a better picture of what the sense of this film was when it came out. So this is it. The man from U.N.C.L.E. never delivers anything like a punch of Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible adventures, nor the wit and distinctiveness of 007. And the two male leads, Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer, are fantastically dull and uncharismatic, with all the sexy danger of a pair of M&S men's underwear models. Both are entirely outclassed, however, by an airy cameo from Hugh Grant as the dry British intelligence chief Waverly, giving one and all an object lesson in scene stealing. Discuss.
Yes. Oh, mate. I mean, don't get me wrong. I completely agree with that. And also, I wish I had that view of the film, and I wish I'd watched the film knowing that that was the point, that Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer were going to be flat, because I didn't think that. And so when they were flat the whole way through, I was like, oh, this is boring.
Did you think they were flat though?
I did find them slightly odd. I think Armie Hammer, I think, always for me had a tough job, because the whole time I was just listening out for everyone's accents, because obviously Henry Cavill is a British guy, an English guy playing an American. Then you've got Armie Hammer, who's an American guy playing a Russian person, and then you've got Swedish actress playing a German. And so I'm listening out for everyone's accents the whole time. But that to one side. I mean, Henry Cavill's character as well, like, how he sleeps with everyone and all that sort of stuff, and he's always, and it's a bit, I think my back is always straightened when I'm watching a Guy Ritchie film, because I'm always frightened it might be slightly laddish. And I think there may have been moments in this film where it strayed into that territory, but I wonder whether that's just because I'm looking for it, because I think that's kind of Guy Ritchie's style, and I'm kind of opposed to it. But what about you? What did you think about them?
I think my opinion of this film is that a lot of critics are very quick to jump on any kind of like spy history film at the time of when it comes out. Like, it has, I don't know what they want it to be. Like, I don't think this is trying to be Mission Impossible. I don't think it's trying to be James Bond. So I think actually coming onto this film sort of 5 or 6 years after it's made, there's a bit of a revisionist history in me that actually I don't look at it in that way of like trying to compare it to other films. And I think actually standalone, it was a pretty good film. It was very entertaining. It was like the cinematography was fantastic in it. There's a great soundtrack. The fashion, we already said, the fashion and costume was brilliant.
Yeah.
And you know what? For me, and I'm sure for you as well, we've discussed this on other pods, there isn't anything better than a good story that involves, the British, the Americans, the Russians in Cold War East Germany, with a bit of like, some Germans over here, a bit of Italian splash over there. And that just makes for a fantastic melting pot.
Are they still following us?
Yes.
Does he have just one hand on the steering wheel?
Mm-hmm.
When you hear something that sounds like a gunshot, drive.
Did you get him?
Let's just hope he doesn't drive as quickly as he moves. Take a right.
And then an immediate left.
Now what?
Take another left through the window. After you.
I saw a review of this film that said, it is just attractive people wearing attractive clothes, being attractive and saying funny lines and doing cool actiony stuff. And it's like, and that's meant to be a detraction of the film. Tell me what about that is a bad thing.
We may have
we
may have read the same review. I think it's something. I read something that said that there's actually, in all cinema, there's a lot to be said for watching beautiful people doing very silly things, which is basically kind of what this is. Yeah. And to be fair, everyone looked fantastic in this film, Hugh included.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. He's at the top of the list.
Another thing, Diggs, I did want to talk about a little bit is Hugh Grant's relationship with Guy Ritchie.
Yeah.
So this is the first time I believe that they worked together, and of course, it then spiraled to The Gentleman, which came out last year or 2 years ago. Was it?
I think it was last year.
It was last year,
2020. Right at the beginning of 2020, yeah.
God, the time just morphs. But
I know.
What do you think about Hugh working with Guy Ritchie and how that dynamic works, and his role in his kind of style of cinema?
I think that's a great question, and I think Hugh's talked about Guy before. I think they met each other and they liked each other. I think Guy's quite eccentric and stuff, and I think Hugh likes that. And Guy was like, "I'm gonna have you in a fucking film of mine. I'm gonna have you in a bloody film of mine." And so yeah, he gave him the script, and with this, it kind of works. It's quite. I think for Hugh, it was a perfect way to ease himself into the Guy Ritchie universe, because he's playing sort of a bit character who comes at the end, and he's kind of just got to be Hugh Grant. It's like he's got to be suave, he's got to be good looking, he's got to be authoritative, he's got to be very British. I mean, it's playing to all Hugh's strengths. And I'm so glad that that's come about, because obviously then they enjoyed working together, and that meant that Guy then thought of him for the future for The Gentleman, which I think we both agree is one of Hugh's top roles. And within that world, he was given the license to run and play free. What did you think?
Well, it's interesting actually. There's a little bit of fun trivia. Is that I think the way that Hugh and Guy Ritchie originally made their connection was that Hugh Grant's dad and Guy Ritchie's dad were friends of each other in the British Army in the 1950s, which is quite an interesting little story. I completely agree with you. I think that actually Hugh Grant is his style of acting. You wouldn't think of it necessarily to fit in with a Guy Ritchie's kind of cinema, but it actually marries kind of perfectly. A lot of Guy Ritchie films have this comedic side to them, and I think Hugh's comedy, like sort of light, subtle comedy, fits perfectly within that. And I mean, that there's a couple of scenes here in this film when like he's in the helicopter with them, and he, I can't exactly remember the lines, but he cracks some absolutely brilliant one-liners that it encapsulated the comedy of this film perfectly, where it's basically these two this American and Russian are taking themselves incredibly seriously, think they're on this like mission to save the world, and then it's just like Hugh rocks up this sort of British village idiot almost, and be like, jolly good show, chaps, well done. We'll take it from here, and we fooled you as well. And so I just, I thought you, like you said, it was a perfect kind of introduction to that style of cinema, and the sort of cool, and he works with that cool, stylish element and fashion, and yeah, I'm so glad he did get that role, because, like you said, The Gentleman is the perfect gem of a movie for him.
It's so great you brought that up, because I think you're absolutely spot on, and I think no one would have guessed it beforehand, like you said. I think no one would have guessed that they wouldn't have watched a Guy Ritchie film and thought, yes, Hugh Grant would fit in that universe really well. But Hugh, he said it in interviews about this as well, that he was like, when they went to the read through, he jotted a few, as he often does, of his own lines in there that he replaced, and they liked those. I think that showed straight away Hugh gets it. He gets the Guy Ritchie world. He spots the jokes. He spots where he can imprint his own personality on each role. And like you say, that helicopter scene, no better place for it, because it's also those Hughisms where he's sort of putting, like you say, he's putting the Russian down, he's putting the American down, the Yanks and the Reds, and but in that beautiful, joyful British way. And I think that's absolutely right. I think he and that's why this works so well. He spots the jokes. He sees where he can imprint himself. And I think that's exactly what he did in The Gentleman.
And I think it actually leads on to a wider point about Hugh Grant. And I think there's a lack of understanding and appreciation for Hugh's knowledge of cinema. I think that whoever, like, from my understanding, whoever he works with, whatever film project, cinema style he works on, he gets it straight away. He understands where people are coming from, the style of cinema that's trying to be created. And, that must make, as a director, Hugh a sort of joy to work with, really, a veteran of the scene. I mean, and he would have loved working on this film as well, just because, he is a bit of a history buff as well, isn't he?
What is it about spy thrillers that make them such an enduring genre and, so much fun to the audiences all those years later?
Well, I don't know. Danger, I think, is always thrilling. I was thinking that the other day watching a Scorsese film, and you feel the same with Tarantino. The threat of some terrible piece of violence happening at any moment gives an incredible lift to any film and makes it, you just can't stop watching. And so I think that's always been the thing. And I think it's sad now that we don't really have a good, solid Iron Curtain with Eastern Europeans to fear. But it's coming back a little.
Taking he for granted. Taking he for granted. Taking he for granted. What did you think, lads? Were they taking he for granted?
So, Diggory, that time again, isn't it? We've got to the end of the show, sadly. But before we do finish, we must ask each other that all-important question. The man from U.N.C.L.E, are we taking you for granted?
Do you know what? It's a really, really tough one. Speaking to you about the film, it's made me appreciate it a lot more, and it's making me reflect on Hugh's part of it in a much, much greater light. You can tell I'm really torn on this one. However, I don't know if I can divorce myself from how I felt when I watched the film, which was I was a bit like, I couldn't tell where I was, because it wasn't a Mission Impossible film, because it wasn't a James Bond film. It never really fit into that. It was a bit of a talkie at points, and not really one. It did that thing that I really don't like, where very Ocean's 11, where something will play out, and then it will actually be like, well, hold on, and this is how it actually played out, and all these things worked out in the protagonist's favor, and you go, okay, well, that's fine. And then they do it again and again and again. You go, okay, just show me the actual film now. I don't like doing that, like, oh, we got you, because it's like, you didn't get us, you just didn't show us, that sort of thing. Anyway, that's a small gripe about the film, but I think I love Hugh Grant. Again, he wasn't in the film enough as well. That's another gripe about it. So I think, for me, based on my viewing earlier, coming out of the film immediately afterwards, I would say this film is taking Hugh for granted. I don't think there's enough about it that I don't think it has enough character that differentiates it from other Guy Ritchie films, or many other films, to be honest. And there's not enough Hugh in it. What about yourself, Oscar? Are we taking Hugh for granted?
Dear oh dear, Diggs. I'm going to strongly disagree with you here, which we love. And I'm going to say that we are not taking Hugh for granted. I think that this is the ultimate cameo appearance that Hugh has ever made. Like,
wow.
He isn't meant to be in this film for a long time. And the times he is in the film, he is the man who brings the whole story and plot together. And he does it with panache, style, humor. And I just think he kills it. And, you know, he looks great. His character is very amusing, and I actually think that the film was a really good watch. Like, I came away from the film and thought, you know what, that was great entertainment. I thought that, you know, while there was, you know, we talked about where the film could improve, blah, 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 blah. Ultimately, I came away and felt, you know, I spent my evening well. That was really fun. It's another stupid film, like The Man Who Went Up a Hill and Came Down a Mountain, where the bloody title actually puts me off from watching it. Like, when I see that title, I'm like, what the hell is The Man from U.N.C.L.E? They should call it a better name. But regardless of that, I do not think we are taking Hugh for granted here. It is gone into my top 10 of Hugh Grant films, and so therefore we cannot take it for granted.
I think that's great. I think, as I say, I always love it when we disagree, because then people can fall on either side when they watch the film as well. I think we might have to, at some point, announce to people, because we're now well over the midway point of Hugh's filmography. We might have to collate our lists.
We'll
at
have
some
to
point
collate our list, have a chat about it, and maybe even put out like our first taking Hugh for granted article. Sort of, you know, like a proper like deep dive into our reasonings for the top 10, or, you know, actually no, it's got to be 1 to whatever it is.
Yeah. Oh wow. Maybe we should do that, because I see all these. There's loads of. I see all these other, like,
you know, Enemy. Every single Kanye West song rated 1 to 100.
Yes, I mean, friend of the pod, Ella Kemp, journalist and film critic, does every single Pixar film and every single Coldplay song. You know, all those sorts of things. So maybe we'll have to ask her how she collates these lists and get some, because it's going to be a mighty task.
We should pitch it to someone.
We should bloody pitch 100%. It. Anyway, guys, you're getting a look behind the curtain. This is what our production meetings are like. It's just us going, we should do this, and like, yes, let's do it. And that's how you got this podcast. Fantastic stuff. Right, guys, thank you so much again for coming along on the ride. Follow us on all the socials. Let us know your favourite Hugh Grant films, but more importantly, what you thought about this one in particular. I'd be very interested to know, because I think a lot of people, I saw a lot of comments online, people saying, "Oh, this film is criminally underrated," and I thought, what, you're all saying that, so it can't be underrated. This film is criminally overrated by how much it's underrated.
Yeah,
but yeah,
exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. Let us know what you thought, and, you know, we've been missing a bit of. I feel like the Hugh Grant has gone a bit underground. So we want a bit of buzz. We want a bit of buzz. We have heard on the airwaves a rumor that he may be starring in a new film soon. Don't want to reveal too much. Our sources are we have close sources, but we believe that there may be more Hugh content down the line soon.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I mean, this is the problem with films these days, is that you know, he might be filming it, but it will probably need lots of totting up. And this is what he was saying in an interview about this film. You know, they were meant to be on that aircraft carrier, but they were actually just in that soundstage again. It's all green screen, and they're not on an aircraft carrier. And so I imagine, even if, let's say, he's filming right now, it'll be a bloody year until we see it, because they'll need to be touching up his eyebrows in post-production. Not that they need to. And doing all that. Oh, well. Something to look forward to in these bitterly cold months. Excellent. Right. Thank you so much. It's goodbye from me, Diggory Waite.
It's goodbye from me, Oscar.
See you later, guys.
See ya.
Taking Hugh for Granted is produced, edited and presented by Diggory Waite and Oscar Beardmore Gray. The producers of Taking Hugh for Granted would like to state that this podcast is in no way associated with the actor Hugh John Mungo Grant, nor does it endorse his views or represent him in any way. Instead, by creating this podcast, Oscar and Diggory hope to celebrate Hugh's illustrious career, reliving his old classics and shedding light on some of his hidden gems. Hugh, if you're listening, we hope you approve.